Hello, and welcome to the Charlington Press Late Night Show. Today we will have two special guests, the Vice President of the new Francian Republic, Francis McLaughlin, and the General Secretary of the Socialist Republic of Sveikialand, Murray Catkin. Sorry.
Hello.
Good evening, Jen.
Hello, everyone.
Um, so, uh, uh, Vice President, we are familiar with the recently coined fascist scourge that occurred 3 to 4 weeks ago in the Micronational Assembly. Yes.
Yes.
Um. So, uh, what did you think when Austria first announced its fascist coup?
When I first heard that Austria was fascist, I didn't think all too much of it. Austria's leader Ryan has, to be honest, is always kind of had that fiery spirit. So I thought he has that fiery spirit, so whatever he must be doing must be good for his nation. And
Right.
so, therefore, I followed in his footsteps, turning Francia into a fascist government because, as looking at Ryan's nation, I saw that the people needed a strong centralized government.
Right. So, do you think this helped your internal politics and, to a greater scale, your international appearance?
International, yes, it helped out. Oh, I think it helped out. I'm not so sure, but internally, no, we didn't even last a week, I believe.
So, thank you. And so, General Secretary, seeing how Sveikialand is socialist, what did you think when the fascist nations began massing power within the Micronational Assembly?
So personally, I was a tad bit frightened when I saw that, due to the fact that I am from, Jewish. I am ethnically Jewish, and I fear that there would be, a new rise of Nazi nations, and that there'd be either an actual war or a Cold War that would last as long until one side, basically collapses. And I didn't want to be the side that, ended up turning fascist. So kind of got organized with the Western People's League and ended up kind of forming an opposite side to the not capitalist, but to the fascist powers in the MA, since I'd say arguably Francia and Austria are, and even actually, yeah, Senland was fascist at the time as well. They were probably the most powerful and influential nations in the assembly. So I was worried that it would spread even further and to even more nations, and I didn't want to be surrounded by fascists due to the very bad past of fascism and all of that.
So, what did you think when the American Organizations of Fascists was formed?
So I was a tad bit scared that they were getting more organized and more, I guess, like centralized, since if they're able to have power in one area that they all agree on, then they'd be able to be much more influential. So a large collective of fascists definitely did fear. I mean, it kind of made me fear a little bit for the sovereignty of Sveikialand, but it ended up not being too bad in the long run, and we're still around, and the fascists aren't. So haha, vive el socialismo.
So, what did you think when the espionage plot by the fascists against Sveikialand was announced?
So, I recently learning about the espionage plan, I actually was somewhat amused because knowing that the fascists feared me actually gave me a little bit of joy. I mean, fascism and socialism are always going to be opposed, no matter how much people try to say that fascism is just another form of socialism. They will always be opposed, and fascists and people on the left, not like liberals, but actual leftists, will always be like diametrically opposed to each other, just due to the fact of how their ideology just cannot coexist at all. So, knowing all of this, it made me happy actually that there was some action against the nation that ended up not working, and there was fear of our influence. So I guess it kind of made me feel like, the Soviet Union to, like, I guess America during the Cold War after the Vietnam War having a gigantic political victory, saying, hey, they did something bad and we didn't do anything, it kind of made me feel like that, and it definitely gave me a political advantage if I ever needed to, do anything less than favorable towards the fascist nation. But, the fascists aren't around anymore.
Right. But Vice President, were you aware that this espionage plot was even happening at the time?
Yes, and Westria, we all knew that Westria feared Sveikialand, and to be honest, we all did. Sveikialand was very influential within the MA, and we knew that they were the only thing standing in the way of a fascist MA. So,
were you aware that Gradonia was the main front of the espionage plot?
No, actually, from the only thing that I was told was that we would be striking at socialism's heart.
Right. So this goes further into the collapse of the fascists, that they didn't even share the very vital information with each other. That would probably lead to their domination of the Micronational Assembly. But now for questions for both of you. So as we know, the Micronational Assembly Council elections are coming up this fall, and Gradonia has taken interest in becoming a candidate. Can you fill us in on the rules of the election?
On the what of the election? It glitched out for a second.
I think he said rules.
Okay, the rules. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, so the rules are simple. For the election, you can be of any political ideology. You just have to be you just can't be a role play nation, and you have to pretty much just do your best to uphold your campaign promises. Or at least
and also be somewhat active.
Yeah, and also be somewhat active. Always got
because you have to once you become a moderator or actually a member of the council or any higher position than a normal member of the assembly, you actually have to be more participant in what actually happens and post and be like I've said, being active is very important since you want to kind of be a good example towards the other nations. And you also, like Francia said, you have to try to fulfill your campaign promises as best as possible and make sure that you're not lying or listen to people so that, even if you don't necessarily like their policies, you can still, represent as many people as possible.
Right. So speaking of role plays and inactive micronations, with the recent problems with role plays, inactive and meme micronations, what would your solution to the problem be?
Francia, you can go first.
No, you wait. Can you repeat the question, please?
So with the recent problems of role plays, inactive and meme micronations, what would your solution to the problem be?
I'd say our main solution is do what we've always done. And every couple more months or so, just put up a post, see who comments and who's active. Whoever doesn't reply will be purged.
I think also it shouldn't be people who don't necessarily because some nations are I think we need to make sure that it's easier for nations to tell if they can't be active, that they need to post about it, because we want to make sure that the wrong nations don't get purged, because whenever I purge, I try to look into the accounts to make sure that they're actually people that either have nothing to do with micronationalism or either never posted or don't do much to contribute to the assembly. So I think we should always warn somewhere publicly before we purge, but I agree with Francia that we should pretty much keep up the current practices that we have in place whenever we're dealing with these accounts. And I think that we should try to enforce certain rules like harassment. I think we should make it so that nations, even if they don't necessarily like the leaders of or if they don't like each other, or if they disagree, that they should still, be civil towards each other, since they're all, aiming for their autonomy from whatever country they seceded from. So I think if we want to respect all nations, we have to uphold the no verbal assault rule more than we currently do.
And also the other rules, such as from a few weeks back, Baron von Reichbottom had a post containing nudity.
Oh yeah,
I remember that one.
Yeah. And
yeah.
then there was also where the original Micro National Assembly group chat was very recently invaded by French-speaking.
French.
Yes, and they posted multiple pornographic photographs
Yeah.
on the
I think
chat.
we should try to enforce, we should make sure that the only members that are in the Micronational Assembly group chat, no matter what one it is, they should always be the leaders of a nation. Even if it's their second account, I think we should let them in. But as long as they say, "Hey, this is my second account," and if anyone I think if anyone harasses each other, is caught harassing another member of the assembly in any, of the any extension of the Micronational Assembly, I think they should be either kicked from the assembly or kicked from that group chat and given, I know it sounds really stupid, but a stern reminder not to do that, and letting them know that we don't tolerate that.
So, do you believe in a more three strikes rule? Like first time it's a very stern warning, second time it's a temporary ban, and then the third time a permanent ban?
I'd say it all depends on the context. So if we look at someone like you were saying, Reichbottom, I think that the first time, I feel like it was a lapse in my judgment not fully banning him from the assembly. The first he posted nudity, because I wanted to give him a second chance, but looking back, I probably shouldn't have done that. But I think that I don't know if it should be definite one strike, well, three strikes you're out. I think it should just be, we look at what the content was and see if it matched the standards of the assembly, and depending on what it was, we judge it as a council, or even using a full democratic vote in the assembly as to what we should do.
So moving on, what other changes would you try to include?
Francia, would you like to go first?
Oh, yes. Well, if I were to be elected, I would introduce a sort of how would you put it? I would try and put up a vote and see if we could do a sort of a what do you call it? It's the thing that allows workers from different countries to come to travel between countries in the MA. Yeah,
So
work visas.
would that almost be like a more EU reform, as in people can travel between countries without having to worry about passports?
No. People would still have to worry about passports, but if you have a work visa, then you could. Then I would try to enforce that,
And you
allow.
have to do as much background checks. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I agree with that. I guess, if, in my opinion, I think if we were to change the assembly, I'd definitely make it more democratic, and I'd add, I might be able to do this right now, but I definitely want more members. I want more council positions so that more people could be represented. So, because being a member of the council, it kind of rewards the most active members who actually participate in the MA. Because, most nations that are part of the council usually post quite regularly. And I don't know what happened to Sam. I hope that whatever he's doing, whatever he's doing or however he's doing right now is okay. Because he hasn't really done much in the assembly in a while. But back on topic, I just think that there should be more reform to make the MA more of a democratic organization, because we're kind of an oligarchy of whatever nation has the most influence. But I think we should make it more, like, a tad bit more decentralized. I know that sounds kind of odd, but for such a already decentralized assembly, but I think we should, make sure that all the individual nations have more power in the assembly to make decisions. And I guess also this one many people may disagree with, but I think all Nazi nations should be either kicked or banned, because that would not look good if we want to present ourselves publicly and showing a bunch of Nazi nations posting, "Oh, kill Jews, I don't like them." Like
Yeah.
I would not want to see that in the assembly. I think that should be up to the people to vote, not me, since I'm just one member of the assembly who happens to be in the council. But I think if we do what I did earlier this month, which was repeal, well, I mean, make proposing, I guess it was legislation or just voting if we should keep the swearing, or if we should allow swearing or not. Or, since I just figure that since no one really, like, since most people don't swear too much in the MA and it's not really enforced anyway, so it's just kind of useless to have it there. Since if whoever sweared got kicked out, I would have been kicked out a long, long time ago.
I'm pretty sure
So I
we
think
all
we
would
should,
have.
yeah, I think that we should eliminate some useless bureaucracy and add what actually matters instead of just creating this gigantic organization full of treaties and all these other things, and
Yeah.
just try to streamline the MA experience for everyone so that they can all have the best and most secure and safe time while spending it here. It sounds like I'm doing a vacation ad, but have the most secure experience in the MA, so that they don't so that we don't give a bad public perception out to other nations that might be interested in joining. And we should also expand our presence, like talking with other micronations, like Molossia,
Yeah.
Sealand, and all the other like more serious, like not serious, but the more
Prominent.
like famous, yeah, prominent, the more prominent nations, and try to get into contact them and organize with them and organizing diplomatic meetings, and definitely, if possible, sending a few delegates to MicroCon 2019 or 2021 if possible.
All right. So moving on. For some more Gradonian centered questions. What would your opinion of Gradonia be?
I think it's a
You
very
can go ahead, Francis.
okay.
Oh,
Then
go ahead, Francis.
Thank you, Murray.
Welcome.
I personally think Gradonia is a very prospering nation. It has the potential to become very influential, just like Francia, Austria, Senland, etc., etc.
Um,
I agree with that definitely, because I feel like Gradonia definitely has a lot of aspects of an actual nation that will truly help it, achieve statehood or at least autonomy. Because we may not be even recognized, but we will. The best thing that we could do is be autonomous from the nations that we seceded from. So I feel like Gradonia is definitely capable of doing that. And they have I mean, you guys have really good natural resources. You have freaking oil on your land, so you're, I mean, pretty lucky in that respect. I can't claim to have any oil, but it seems like you definitely could hold your own in the micronational assembly, and I'd say even have the possibility to become a micronational superpower along with Senland, Austria, and Francia.
um, Thank you. But in the wake of the new boost of agricultural productivity, do you think that Gradonia would be a good trade partner?
I'd say yeah, because most nations in the MA definitely want to trade with each other since it's beneficial for us all. Since if we can prove that there are interactions with other sovereign states, then we could probably actually get more cred in the MA, and not in the MA but in the UN. So it seems like if I definitely want to trade with Gradonia if that's possible, or any other nation in the MA, since trading is what makes nations like real nations. Since not if it weren't for the global network that we have, no nation would be voice crack, but no nation would be able to actually sustain itself. No matter how many resources they have, we all have to rely on each other for resources. So I think instead of being reliant on the nations that we seceded from, we should be reliant on the nations of the MA.
And you, Vice President?
I honestly couldn't have said it any better than how Murray just said it. So That's my answer.
I got too much to say.
And moving on with this question, there is soon to be a developed metal salvage and recycling initiative in Gradonia with steel, copper, aluminum, and other valuable metals. Do you think that this would benefit yourselves if you were to trade with Gradonia and Gradonia itself?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think if we all create a self-sufficiency of between nations, I think that would definitely be beneficial for everyone, so that we all, if one nation does good, every nation does good. But we should also make it so that if one nation is lacking in natural resources, we could, help them make up for it in other ways, like, more abstract ideas like technology.
Yeah. I also agree, because I honestly think if you have a metal and salvage, whatever it was, I can't think of it at the moment. I honestly think that it help you out greatly with because is like how Mary said earlier, that could boost trade with other nations. So if you if you start trading your steel, you get money, your nation's economy goes up, and then our nation's economy goes up, and then it helps everyone out. Yeah, everyone's happy.
Because from what I've noticed, many micronations in the MA don't have a lot of they have a lot of agriculture, but they don't have a lot of industry that many macronations, many actual nations have. And I feel like this would be a really huge step for the MA if we just started the actual production of refined metals.
So yeah, that's where, I guess, in my belief, socialism would come in, but I don't want to argue for that right now. I just want to. It's just more about protecting the workers for industrialization.
But so recently, Gradonia has received information that the roleplay nation Saspirian lives only about 45 minutes away. So in the event of a war between Saspirian and Gradonia, who would you support and why?
Francis, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I'm pretty sure my answer is pretty obvious. As obviously the state of Gradonia has the full support of the new Francian Republic, because Gradonia and Francia have always stood by each other and have always really considered each other friends. So, like Senland and Westria, we're not just going to stand by and let our friends get beat up on the field. We're going to step in to help. And B, why would we ever support a nation that has its capital in its bedroom?
Right.
Good point.
Yeah, not much we can do there to help them out.
And you, Grand Marshal?
I suppose so. This kind of goes back to the history of our country. I would try to stay as neutral as possible. Now, obviously, I would be leaning towards the Gradonian side, since we have much more diplomatic relations compared to Saspirian. Now, I don't know. I don't really hold anything against Saspirian. I just wouldn't necessarily be on his side, nor your side, but I'd be leaning on your side. But since it'd be so hard to send goods, since I'm, in the Midwest and you're in Texas, it'd be a lot harder for me to send goods. But well, in the treaty that we signed, I did say that we'd mutually recognize each other. So if Saspirian did become, if they did become the new rulers of Gradonia, I would still recognize the old Gradonian government, no matter where it is, if, it's a government in exile. So I guess in that respect, I'd have to be on the Gradonian side, but I try to stay as neutral as possible. And since wars are always a really awful debacle to get into in micronationalism, I mean, we had a whole era of just declaring war on nations that we didn't like, and I was always against it because I found it useless. Since the only thing we could do was just tell where we were and throw insults at each other. So I figure war is mainly useless. But since you guys are so close, I, like I said previously, I'd be leaning towards the Gradonian side, but I'd be neutral. So I guess that's my answer in as few words as possible.
Um, but thank you both for your input and opinion. In 2 weeks, we'll have another interview with the Federal Republic of Austria. Thank you, everyone who watched, and good night.